Steelers win 21-14. They pull it out by the skin of their teeth. Couple good takeaways, couple bad takeaways from the game. We're going to get into those here shortly. It's just me today, Carter. Amir will be back for our episode that gets put out on Friday morning. But obviously, 21-14, first win in Foxborough for the Steelers since 2008, I believe. And a couple important things to take away from this game. Some good, some bad. It's still early in the season, so hopefully they can, figure some things out so they don't, carry this on throughout the season. But, next week is, the Ireland week. Played 9:30 in the morning. We'll see how that goes. But if we look into this game specifically against the Patriots, I got some important things. We'll start with the offense. First, no sacks allowed. That's pretty good. Granted, I don't think the offense is on the field very much, but pass protection looked a little bit better. I don't think it was fantastic. Rodgers honestly could have got sacked a couple of times, but the 0 sack tally is pretty good. And, on the flip side, Steelers had, 5 sacks? They haven't been productive in the sack game until now. Finally, pressure's getting back. Watt got his first sack. Harmon got a sack. Hayward got a sack. The pass rush looked a decent bit better, but we're going to stick to the Steelers offense for now. So obviously, we got no sacks allowed. I thought the pass protection looked a little bit good. And I think some of the play calling was uninspired at times. They had the first 2 drives that were good, but the play calling seemed a little uninspired later on in that game. And I think that comes from the Steelers. They think they have the 14-0 lead, and they're trying to keep it, so they're trying to play conservatively. I just don't understand how they don't think that, to change their ways. They've played conservatively on offense ever since I can remember, honestly. And, I do respect the, trusting their defense. I don't really trust them. I kind of like them a little bit more now, but I'll talk about them later. But I just don't get the play. There were some good play calls that I, gave a nice head nod to. I respected those play calls. They looked pretty good. But after those first 2 drives, handing off 1st and 10, that's the biggest enemy of the Steelers, 1st and 10. They can't figure it out at all. 1st and 10 run, they lose yards. 1st and 10 pass, incompletion. I think penalties really helped out the team's cause. And, my next point that's pretty big is, Warren, granted, his numbers don't look necessarily insane, but he picked up the most yards by any, Steeler player. I'm assuming Rodgers probably has a little bit more just because pass yards. But if you look at Warren and, the effort he puts in every play, I think that if they're able to, get the ball in his hands more and be able to be succinct and, executing on all cues on offense, I think he can really be the needle mover for making his team look more like a playoff caliber team. Because based off that win, I think neither of these teams are playoff quality. Drake May looked good at times. Fumbling. I really liked his scrambling ability. I don't think the Steelers really keyed into that as much as they should have. Watt and got held in that one play, but I don't think they really set an edge properly for a good bit of the times, and they kept picking up sticks, picking up downs. But I'm going to talk about that more when I get to the defense. But I still want to keep the key on Warren. I think that's probably the best player the Steelers have on offense. It's just, will the O-line click, and will, the play calling click to where they can actually utilize him to more, take over the game. I think definitely the thing that is notable to me is his, elusiveness with breaking tackles, and obviously him run after the catch. That one, I think it was, I don't know if it was like a 3rd or 2nd and 10, but he got the ball, had space, had 2 guys ready to tackle him, juked them both out, and got the first down. I think if you get Warren in space, it's going to be nothing but success for the Steelers. It's just, can they set that up, and do they have, something that can support that and they can lean on whenever that gets keyed into by the other defense. But other than that, that's all really I have from the offense. Thought the O-line looked better, and I think Warren is really going to be the Steelers' key to success here in the future. We'll see if they are able to fine-tune this offense to further, benefit what they're doing here this season, and hopefully they can get Warren to be more effective with play calling and, overall offensive execution. Defense, big sacks, big pressures. Obviously, the story of the game is the Patriots turnovers, the forced fumbles. Two big forced fumbles there from Ramondre Stevenson. He fumbled on the goal line. This game was, honestly, if there were no turnovers, Steelers probably would have got blown out. Defense was really bend, don't break. Ideally, you don't want this defense to bend at all, but when they're on the field for the majority of the game, there's obviously going to be some bending and, some guys going down. The main thing I thought was I didn't think they looked terrible until it was third down. Giving up third and longs left and right. Patriots were 4 for 5 on fourth down. They couldn't really get themselves off the field. And, hopefully they can, find some ways. I honestly think it's a schematic issue. And, what Cam Hayward said is they kind of get keyed into what their responsibilities aren't. So if you can get these players' minds keyed in and get a little bit better of a scheme, I think this team will actually be able to showcase the most expensive defense in the league and be able to, actually put that forth and be one of the more dominant defenses in the league, as they should be because they're paying them $158 million. It's a bad look, letting the Patriots run all over you, pass all over you. Fortunately, they fumbled 4 times and threw an interception. So, interception in the red zone within like the 10 yards, and then they had that fumble literally on the 1-yard line as he was crossing the goal line. So I thought we got a little bit lucky. You just need to play some more sustainable football. And, a little bit of a bright spot from the defense there except for third down, so we'll see how they continue that. Ireland, I'm curious that. I'll briefly talk about that in a little bit. I do think there's been some progress in the run game. They're stopping it better. Harmon was getting in. Y.A. Black was credited with a start on Sunday. Yeah, they made some personal changes as well. I talked about Y.A. Black, but also Cole Holcomb technically got the start over Peyton Wilson. Peyton Wilson's been a little sketchy in the run game the past 2 weeks previous to this, so we got some more guys in there. Peppers got a start. He was more impactful in the run game. I just think they were flying to the ball faster, and coverage is where it's interesting. Queen getting picked on that one play for that third and long conversion. Coverage just breaks down constantly on third down and long, third and short, whatever. And I think that just comes down to schematics and, fully communicating with this defense. And it's kind of interesting that they get paid that much and they still have communication issues. I think there needs to be some sort of, fixes or changes. It can't just be, we're not executing. They need to change some sort of schematics, and they're kind of on their way to that because they, move some starting and, player minutes around, snap counts. So I think they potentially are on their way. I'm just curious if they'll make some changes for that, because the Vikings put up, I don't know, was it like 48 points against the Bengals? It was the absolute slaughter, 48-10. The Vikings honestly might be slightly better with Carson Wentz in there. Doesn't give me too much hope, but hopefully the Steelers can correctly prepare. There's more tape on him than McCarthy, so maybe they'll be able to defend the quote-unquote home game in Ireland. I'm curious what the turnout will be for the fans. Hopes are slowly increasing, but I don't think we're at a full loss of hope. I think this next game will be pretty interesting if they can stick in this and pull off the win. We're going to start stacking, hope for the Steelers, and they can continue to stack these successful blocks, and then they can get into this game here in Ireland and hopefully beat this Vikings team, which has a pretty darn good defense, and they have good offensive pieces that might actually be utilized a little bit better with Carson Wentz, especially with, their offensive play caller and head coach. So I think this Vikings game is going to be more telling than this Patriots game, because I don't think the Patriots are very playoff savvy. I think the Vikings are definitely are. So I'm curious how it'll go. And that's going to be it for this, episode recap of the Steelers win on Sunday against the Patriots. And we will be back for the episode Friday morning, me and Amir, previewing the Vikings game. Have a good one.